Oh, how are you enjoying your fundamental transformation? Is it working out well? While the media devotes endless segments to, what are we going to do without contraception? The important stuff gets ignored. Cardinal Timothy Dolton, he's the president of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. He wrote a letter dated March 2nd in which he discusses a disturbing conversation between bishops and White House officials at the White House. The bishops were told that the exemptions and revisiting the mandate were off the table. That's a quote. Stunned, Dolan writes, quote, "So much for working out the wrinkles. They advised the bishops' conference that we should listen to the enlightened voices of accommodation." Oh. Such as the recent, yet hardly surprising, terribly unfortunate editorial in America. The White House seems to think that we bishops simply do not know or understand Catholic teaching. And so, taking its cue from its own definition of religious freedom, it has now nominated its own hand-picked officials, Catholic teachers. Gee, what country has this happened to before? One of the reasons why I went to Rome was to talk about the attack on religion. Anti-Semitism, anti-Catholicism, anti-religion, anti-God. There is a growing hatred for absolutely everything sacred growing in the world now. This letter should chill you to the bone. The White House is selecting their own people. They're saying, you should listen to this Catholic over here. Telling the bishops, listen to that one because that's an enlightened voice. Oh my gosh, what are we turning into? Let me give you two more pieces that should throw cold water on your neighbor if they need it. Anonymous has hacked into 3 church websites and replaced them with prominent atheist Richard Dawkins. Their message declared war on religion and called religion a sickness that has come to the world a long time ago, quoting, when mankind wasn't educated. They said that it comes from a non-enlightened period. Wait a minute, that's like the White House saying you should listen to the enlightened. Today, it was confirmed that Anonymous has now hacked into the Vatican website, shutting it down for much of the afternoon. The second piece, the president's replacement for his pastor, Jeremiah Wright. He replaced him with another whack job, Jim Wallace. Jim Wallace recently said this, quote,
"It's not a Christian nation. It's never been a Christian nation."
Total and complete lie. Enlightened voices telling us now it's never been a Christian nation? You were wrong on the bailouts. You were wrong on the stimulus. You were wrong on global cooling. Your plan to create artificial reefs. This is what you're doing. You know what we'll do is artificial reefs. Massive failure. Just a few years ago, they were talking about purposely melting the polar ice cap. Now we're supposed to believe you? Now that you say global warming threatens to melt those same ice caps? Your beloved Darwin, wrong. He didn't know about the complexities of DNA. Now we do. You were wrong on the Arab Spring. How's that uprising in Libya working out, huh? Oh, yeah, no. Here's Darwin. Let me show you the new majority over in Libya that is desecrating British graves. Right here, see these? But don't worry, these are only Christian and Jewish graves. That's it. You're actually on a side now arguing in favor of killing babies after they've been born. This isn't a hard one to figure out, gang, which is the right side and which is the wrong side. Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck program and to GBTV. Progressives used the economic crisis in 1929 to justify massive big government expansion, promising that if we just pass these few laws and these few entitlements, we'll never, ever have problems like this again. Well, here we are 80 years later, and it's 1929 all over again. Yesterday was the biggest stock market loss of the year. Just a measly 203 points this time, but it's why the drop happened that is concerning. it was caused by fear over Greeks' debt problems finally coming to a head. Wait a minute. We solved the debt problems, remember? With that big bailout and all the guys meeting and sweating. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, those Germans are going to get us this time. Don't worry. They're on the horses and they saved Greece. No, they didn't. And there's much more pain to come. We know of this because of a couple of things. One, that, plus the volatility index that measures, hey, how comfortable is everybody that things are going to be shaping up and stabilize? No. There are a few other things as well, like this story about the ECB. That's the European Central Bank. They hope to use every ounce of collateral they could find in order to print even more money, which they could use then as bailout cash. Oops, looks like their collateral is crap. Now they're having margin calls. Oops, that sounds a little like 1929. It also sounds like what happened in 2008 when the bubble burst. There's an increased reason now to believe another crash, a big one, is imminent. Spain is now also calling for a bigger EU bailout fund. And even more than that, the Spanish foreign minister also called for a federal Europe. One step away from global government. And I like this, the mutualization of all debt. Here's what happened yesterday. This is Greece. In Greece, their treasury bills, their bonds, hit an all-time record high of 1,114%. What? They took the unusual step to indefinitely shut down bond trading. Things are happening so fast, and so many people are not going to have any clue as to what happened to them and what happened to all of the money. Where is all that lost money and economic collapses? It's got to go somewhere, right? It doesn't just vanish. See, that's where people like George Soros make off like bandits. Ooh, did I call him a bandit? Yes, I did. And it's a game to him. Not my money, in my words, his words. He thinks it's a game. The Fed did not pump money into banks and then encourage them to lend. They didn't do that. That's what the game they're playing. Hey, you know what we should do? We should have the Fed give these banks a lot of money so they could take it out to the average person. No, no. That's the media game that we've all been buying into. What the Fed actually did was a sneaky way to monetize our debt, our government spending. Remember when I talked about the velocity of money? It was about 4 years ago, and I said, you know, you really have to worry about the velocity of money. That's when the Fed, let me bring the jib up here so you can kind of see down here a little bit. That's when the Fed prints all of the money, and they give it to the banks, and then the banks lend it to you, and then you spend it at the mall. Got it? Nobody wants to do that because that's the velocity of the money. And when money is starting to spread around, that's when high inflation happens. However, if the Fed would have given it to the bank and then lend it out to you, and you were more Japanese in your thinking, and you either put that money back in the bank or under the mattress, it would have no velocity. So you wouldn't have inflation. You could keep printing and printing and printing, but nobody was spending it, so you wouldn't have inflation. It's when people start to spend it that it's a problem. Now, I've been telling you for a while, they're doing all the things that the Weimar Republic did. No, they did something a little more clever, a little more crafty, a little more, evil. They haven't wanted the money to go out. It's not about inflation. It's really not about you. It's not about saving jobs at the malls or little mom and pop stores. It's not about that. It's not about your gas prices. It's nothing. It's about racking up debt. So how do you do it? How do you get the money to continue to spend? Because China's just about done. Think of this. Here's Bernanke. He's over at the Fed. He says, oh, you've got real problems. You know what you need? You need more assets. You need to have more stuff to cover all the loans that you've given to Peter, Paul, and Mary. You got to have more stuff. Well, the banks say, well, I don't have any more stuff. You know what? I'm going to lend you the money at 0%. You just go ahead and take that because you got to have that on your bottom line. So they print a whole bunch of money and they loan it to the banks at 0%. And the banks put it over here, and they're like, that's great. Then the president gets on TV and says, hey, we gave all that money, and you're not giving it to the people, so they can't go out and buy it. It was never intended to do that. Here's where it gets crafty. The bank doesn't have cash here. No. The bank wants to make money. Can't really make any money unless you loan it out, or unless you buy something of value that has an interest rate on it. Yeah, I know what you could do with all this money. You could take this money that you have in your vault and you could buy treasury bonds. And then you get a bunch of paper here, and then all that cash is here. Oh my gosh. Then what you do is you've given the Fed all this money because you've bought U.S. savings bonds, U.S. treasury bonds, and they give it to the government to spend. You see? The bank isn't sitting on that money. The bank bought treasuries. So the Fed could then finance all of the spending the government is doing. It was never intended to get to you. Don't blame the banks. Blame the Fed. It explains everything you want to know. Why the markets keep going up, right? There's a pattern with quantitative easing. Every time the system is injected with cash, what happens? Oh, look at this. Okay, QE1 is expanded. Look at the stock market. Then it ends, starts to go down. Then it begins again, and it goes down. They're just playing games with funny money. And because it's a Band-Aid, when they inject cash in, it eventually comes down. And it covers their tracks, and they inject it again. Yesterday was a mini awakening. The stocks crashed yesterday because of those Greek one-year treasury notes going over 1,000%. That doesn't make any sense. People realized Greece was still screwed. And the market said, I'm not buying, I'm not investing in Greece. I'll never get my money back. No, give us your money for a year, and we'll give you, if I would have bought a dollar bond note on Greece yesterday, in a year you're going to pay me $1,114 for the use of my dollar today? That's wimpy going to Popeye. I'll surely pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. It ain't going to happen. The only way that you could actually pay these bonds off is to hyperinflate the money. This time it's not just to buy the bonds. This time it would go out to pay off the bond holders, and then we're all screwed. The banks, or the markets, I should say, were forced to recognize this yesterday. There's no way to avoid it. Europe's screwed. But if you're in on the game, you're going to be okay if you're one of the elites. You see, what we're building now in America, and it's happening all over the globe, is what Putin built in Russia. It's called an oligarchy. Soros is the top of the food chain. He takes his money and he runs. Because here's the anatomy of the crime. Here's the pattern. The government injects the cash because there's a crisis. They claim the crisis is solved. The schlubs like you and me, we put our money because we start to see the markets go up. Oh, we got to invest our 401ks and all our hard-earned money there. The markets go up. The elites get rich. They ride the wave just until things start to turn south. They have so much money in it, they can make it go south once they pull their money out. They bail before it collapses. You, the schlub, me, the 401k, the retirement accounts get plundered, and this guy gets rich. That's how Soros netted an increase of almost $8 billion last year. Think of that, $8 billion? Betting on what? What are the odds? Somebody call Vegas. You should get at a gaming table. He also was $1 billion richer for one night on the crash of the pound. Think of the globe as a giant casino created with your money. People like George Soros, he's the house. And he's enticing you to get your chips on the table. Oh, this time you're going to be a big winner, knowing that the house always wins. There are also reports that George Soros was the mystery investor who bet $1 billion that the U.S. would lose its AAA credit rating. That was a 10-to-1 odd. Boy, I wish I would have put my money. I don't even know you could make that bet. I wish I would have done that because I knew it too. Occupy Wall Street has no credibility because they will never take on George Soros. They never will because he funds them. Indirectly, he does. And he has to scare people into silence. He has to kick dirt over his own tracks. He does it by having people talk about fat cats, the measly millionaires on Wall Street. Because if you're talking about them, then you're not talking about the real fat cats, the people like George Soros that walk away scot-free. You'll never hear about his heist. You'll never hear about Wall Street's bonuses. Well, unless you read the paper, then that seems to be the biggest deal. The bonuses. You know, the bonuses are only down 13% despite the tough economy, and they still make 5 times what the average worker makes. Have you ever seen that? Main Street struggles. Wall Street still gets bonuses, the headlines will read. Meanwhile, George Soros is like an alien in all those scary Aliens Invade the Earth movies who just want to suck up all the resources and then move on to the next planet. Wall Street bankers are getting measly bonuses. Soros is gobbling up entire countries and soon the globe. He has about 4 or 5 countries under his belt already. He's been labeled an economic terrorist in the past by the Prime Minister of Malaysia. He collapsed the British pound and made billions off it. May I send a warning to our good friends up north in Canada? Canada, watch out. Soros may have his greedy eyes on you next. This 100-year slow churning progressive machine has started to pick up steam, and it is turning faster and faster. And you have to put your head down on the progressive railroad tracks to hear it. But I'm telling you, I've been telling you for years, they're building a machine, and when they turn it on, it's going to be ugly. They've turned it on. Something's happened in the last month or so. Freedom of speech is under attack everywhere. Businesses are being crippled. Hospitals, doctors are being crippled by government bureaucracy. The gobbling up of the DOJ and Homeland Security by forces like CARE. You'll hear a little bit of that tonight. We're working on a documentary right now. That is, I was told, the scariest documentary we've ever done for many reasons, one of which is we name names in this one. And it is about how the forces of Islamic extremism have infiltrated every level. And names will be named. There is the force of darkness that is growing. The summer and fall of 1968 are coming. Last year, I predicted that the Arab Spring would spread out all around the globe and that socialist and radical Islam would come together and eventually it would reach American shores. I was mocked, but that's exactly what happened. I also then said that Occupy would go away for the winter. It would regroup and it would become bigger and more violent. And after the winter, we would have an American Spring. Just like the Arab Spring, mocked and ridiculed. Violence, chaos, and murder is what preceded. But I'm sure it's going to be different this spring. We all saw how peaceful occupiers were the first time around. Surely it couldn't get any worse. Buckle up, gang, because they're regrouping, and something wicked this way comes. And I think it's important that you can gain confidence and explain this to your friends. Now, we've put all of the, I mean, honestly, here's the, 8-page script. Here's the 8-page script that all of the research that everybody did this morning and all afternoon, and I've just said, nah, I'm not going to use any of it. I just want to talk to you about it. But all of the research and all of the stuff on here that I'm going to show you is up. Where did you put it, Tiffany? The Blaze or GlennBeck.com?
It'll be up on GlennBeck.com.
Okay, it'll be up on GlennBeck.com because there is a silencing that is going on. Because I think we're in an endgame scenario. I told you a minute ago that, you know, I've been worried. I feel things speeding up. I'm not saying anything that George Soros hasn't said in the last 6 weeks. He said that there's going to be civil unrest this summer. There's going to be a collapse. There's going to be people out in the streets. They will beg the American people, will beg the government to step in and solve it. And he said the Constitution will be thrown out of the window and un-American things will happen. That's George Soros. That's not Glenn Beck. That's George Soros. A lot of people in this audience, a lot of people elsewhere, they will flee because they will see the big hand of government crushing. You'll see the big hand of media crushing. And they need to make examples. That's why we must be Martin Luther King's. We must live our lives the way he did. That was the real struggle. The real struggle was J. Edgar Hoover against Martin Luther King. J. Edgar Hoover used to say that Martin Luther King was a communist. Well, now Al Sharpton and NAACP and everybody else is saying he's basically a communist as well. I don't believe he was. I believe Martin Luther King surrounded himself with some people like the labor unions that had communist infiltrators in there. And so he was getting help from the communists, but I don't believe he was. I think he may have been used, or he used them as fuel. But it was not a communist movement. It was a spiritual revival. It was a God movement. Now, I want you to remember Martin Luther King and J. Edgar Hoover. That was the struggle in the 1960s. Let me show you what's happening today before we go back to J. Edgar Hoover and Martin Luther King. These are the big players in the world right now on the things that are happening. Big education is fundamentally involved in everything that is happening. Soros, the Tides Foundation, Open Society. Anonymous is now starting to take a big role. SEIU and AFL-CIO. Russia and Putin is now in control. I remember I said that about 8 years ago. And I said, he's going to come roaring back. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, really. Here's Occupy Wall Street, Islamic extremism, Iran, the White House, and the media. These are all the real players that are causing so many problems right now. So let's look at them. Let's look at them. Let's see what they have in common. Let's just use one topic, and you could do this all day. But let's use the topic of Iran. Big education is all against, Israel. All against Israel. They're always inviting Ahmadinejad. In fact, do we have the stuff from Horowitz? Can we show any of this? Here, play this. This is from Horowitz on what's happening on our campuses.
Would you condemn Hamas?
Would I condemn Hamas?
As a terrorist genocidal organization?
Are you asking me to put myself on a cross?
So you won't.
Okay. They're constantly shouting down. That's important to remember. Shouting down on campuses anybody who disagrees with them. This is an open place. This is an open society. This is a place where we're free to exchange ideas unless they disagree with you. Then you're shouted down or bullied. Big education is fostering this. Big education is connected to Occupy Wall Street. It is their design. And now you're seeing it. They're having classes all over the country that are sending kids into Occupy Wall Street for study purposes. You see SEIU is involved. Okay, anti-Israel, anti-Israel, anti-Israel. Russia, anti-Israel. Anonymous. Do we have the Anonymous piece? Anti-Israel. Watch this. This is the latest from Anonymous.
The American Israel Public Affairs Committee wants to lobby for more wars, more destruction, more deaths than they already have committed, and unfortunately, our president has decided to defend them for it. Our government's foreign policy has no sovereignty to America. Its sovereignty is to the state of Israel. PAC is now our enemy. We're calling for an occupation of PAC and the destruction of their websites. Make them pay for their crimes. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We must certainly not forget. Expect
Does that bother anybody that he's saying we are legion? My gosh. Okay. Anti-God as well. Anti-God, 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 anti-God. Anti-Israel. I don't know what that God is. Anti-God, anti-Israel. Anti-God, anti-Israel. Anti-God, anti-Israel. You see the pattern here? And you can do it over and over and over again. Now, what is this? These are all separate groups. Supposedly, they're all working separately. These two, Iran and Russia, are there, and they're playing more and more of a role, but they're not the big players here. Russia and Anonymous are connected because, what's his name, Julian Assange, he's now working for Russia Television. globally. Here in America, he's being put on Putin's voice of Russia. So let's look at this. Let's look at who these people are and how they're connected. Now let me show you how the game is played. If you say, for instance, I'm for Israel, you will be demonized by education. You'll be demonized by Open Society, Tides, or Soros, or one of the Tides is up here because Tides will just open up a shop. Glenn Beck's an anti-Semite, whatever. They'll open it up and they'll just funnel money from Tides through Soros right into whatever shop it is. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you say, they pay for a smear campaign. The White House, and you just saw this last week, the White House comes in and helps shore it up. Oh, well, we're very disappointed in whatever. And the media does the same thing. You're going to get attacked everywhere. And you think that you're surrounded. But you're not. It's really one source. It's one source. But it's all connected. And some of the dopes, the useless idiots, they don't even understand it. They don't even know who they're working for. They're just part of a cause, hope and change, or whatever it is. They're not even looking. Are there connections? Are there reasons why all of this is happening? Yes. Yes. For those of you who speak Russian, communism. All right. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. It's all the same. They're all connected to each other. It's all the same. They may have, these guys may have a different plan than these guys. These guys may have a different plan than these guys or this. But they're all working together. Got it? You have to understand that because when people are attacked on multiple fronts, you have to understand it's all coming from one source or one agenda. First thing, they're all the same. They're all anti-capitalist, 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 anti-capitalist. Got it? Different agendas, except they're all anti-Israel, all anti-capitalist. They make you feel alone. They will isolate you. Where did I read that? Oh, that's Solinsky, taught here, 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 and taught here. Got it? Solinsky. They make you feel alone and small. They make you feel overwhelmed and surrounded. But you're not. It's just giant dollars and giant power that makes you feel that way. Now here's where it gets good. This is why they will fail. And this is why we have to be strong and we have to be good at all times. When the power really goes bad and it's being rotten at the DOJ like nobody's business, there will be arrests of people like me or whoever. There will be arrests. It will happen. And, you know, you can't say you really have faith. You can't say you're really who you really are until you are really tested. Martin Luther King found this out. They're going to have to, that's what they're doing right now. That's why they're saying that they're going to drag people off the streets and they can hold you without, trial, et cetera, et cetera. That's what they're doing. That's what they're building. And it's for revenge purposes, I really, truly believe. But again, here's where it gets good. They have to create the problem. They create the problem. And then they have a solution. Problem created, problem created, problem created, solution. Got it? In the 1960s, the problem was J. Edgar Hoover. The solution was Martin Luther King. Problem, solution. The problem was J. Edgar Hoover was eavesdropping, he was blackmailing, he was strong-arming, he was building files, he bullied his way through government at all levels, he told local police exactly what to do, he worked behind closed doors, nobody knew for sure what he was doing, and he aimed for a large, oppressive government just to protect you. Got it? 1960s. Problem, solution. Martin Luther King, he stood up for the little guy. He said character matters. He was deeply and profoundly religious. He built a coalition of like-minded people. He peacefully marched in the streets. He created a culture. He was out front and in the open, and he was the best of all of us. Here is, let me say it like Yoda, this is why they'll fail. They'll fail because they're trying to occupy both places, the problem and the solution. Let me ask you, the White House, are they eavesdropping? Yeah, he said he hated that. He said he hated that. What, they're doing it. Are they eavesdropping? Are they blackmailing? I don't know, but do you not think that blackmail is happening or payoffs is happening someplace? Look at Acorn. Strong-arming. Are they strong-arming? You bet they are. Are they building files? You bet they are. Are they bullying their way through government? Oh, like, that would put this guy to shame. They're telling local police what to do? I don't know. I don't know, but through the unions and Occupy Wall Street, what we're seeing, through the unions, I think they are. They're working behind closed doors. There's no transparency. And they're working for a large oppressive government. That's these guys. That's what they're working for, is all of these things to control you, to create a better society. But in doing so, they have to throw you off the track. So what do? They present themselves as this guy, Dr. Martin Luther King. Well, now, wait a minute here. You can't be both. So let's see what they have in common. Well, they say they're standing up for the little guy. He actually was. But these guys only mimic that. This is where it gets good. They're only mimicking that. MSNBC standing up for the little guy? Really? Are they? Labor unions standing up for the little guy? Really? Big education standing up for the little guy? No. They're standing up for power. All of this is about power. So they're not standing up for the little guy. They're mocking it and mimicking it. Character matters? Not at all. Religious? They're mimicking that. Van Jones is character matters. He's trying to make himself sound like, oh, character matters. Mimic. Mimic. Built a coalition of like-minded? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, that they've done. Oh, they've done wonders of like-minded people all around the world. That one they keep. Peacefully marched in the streets. Occupy Wall Street? Nope, got to say a big negatory on that one. Created a culture? Oh, there's quite a culture that has been created. So got to leave him that one. He was out front and in the open. Nope. Nope. And the best of humanity? Well, Van Jones says Occupy Wall Street is, but I think So what do they have? They have the telltale sign of they have built a coalition of the like-minded. They don't believe in this stuff. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in peace. They don't believe in any of that stuff. They'll rip your heart out and eat it in front of you. They've built a coalition of like-minded people to do this. And they've created a culture here to empower them to do this, to make you feel alone. And what is that culture? The thing J. Edgar Hoover used to say that Martin Luther King was. Communist. He's not. Martin Luther King, I really don't believe was a communist. But those who helped him build his coalition, many of them were. And they're all the people that built this coalition. Don't be sucked into the game. Don't buy into it that you're alone. Don't make sure your friends understand how it's all connected. And know that you win. Because they cannot be an eavesdropping, blackmailing, strong-arm, building files, bullying their way through government, telling local police what to do, working behind closed doors, and aiming for large, oppressive government people while being the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. They'll have to choose. And in the end, they will choose this, because this is who they really are. We must be this.